Welcome to Athens City Council. This evening we will be meeting in council committees. The meeting will be called to order by the City Council President, who will then pass discussion over to a respective committee. The chair of the committee will introduce the discussion topics and provide an overview of the issues at hand. If needed, members of the administration will offer brief statements to provide further context. We will then welcome input from the community. Any citizens who wish to speak will be asked to state their name and address, both verbally and on the sign and sheet located at the podium. Individuals will be given one opportunity to share their thoughts, and the committee chair will have the authority to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Once all citizens have had the opportunity to speak within the 15-minute time period allotted for total public participation on each topic, the public comment portion will be closed. Council committee members will then continue their deliberations. There may be additional questions directed to the administration during this time. When the discussion on the topic concludes, the chair will indicate whether legislation will be introduced at the next regular session of council and move on to the next item on the agenda or adjourn the committee if their work is complete. The next committee chair will then call their committee to order, proceeding in the same manner as before. Once all committees have adjourned, City Council will conclude for the evening.
Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. Today is April 13th and we are in committees this evening. We will begin with the Committee of the Whole, which will feature a presentation by the Affordable Housing Commission on their annual report. And we'd like to thank Solveig Spilnes for being here this evening, former council member and dedicated civic servant, and we will turn things over to you.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And it's kind of fun to be back and look at you guys again from this angle. So obviously it's April, and we were hoping to do this in December. So I am just going to be talking about, for the Affordable Housing Commission, what we did from January to December. We'll save the other stuff until next December, which we hopefully we can present earlier. But the other thing I'm going to do today is talk about the rental inspection processes subcommittee, because we're supposed to give a quarterly report. So I'm kind of combining those two. That means that I'm going to kind of condense some things that I wish I could talk about it more broadly, but I want to be respectful of the council's time. So that's me, for those of you who don't know. And for my goals, I want to present the mission, history, and accomplishments, discuss our committee's goals and tasks, report on progress, discuss future directions, and as I said, talk about the rental inspection process subcommittee. I want to be really clear here that one of the things that's very important about our commissions, any commission, is that we are an advisory group to the city administration. And one of the ways that we can save money, I think, taxpayers' money, is by giving the commissions tasks to do so that we can help do some legwork for the city and provide informed information to help make good decisions. So anyway, I think that's the reason that commissions are there. Okay, the mission of the Affordable Housing Commission is, it's a city government established to review best practices, investigate community affordable housing models, and identify needs and opportunities within Athens city limits to advance decent, safe, sustainable, affordable housing for all residents. The Commission is tasked with providing advice and guidance on measures and policies that influence access to and needs within the local housing market. And we want to be really clear that this is not just low-income housing, it's housing for all segments of the community. So with that in mind, I'm going to proceed. Okay, the purpose is quite broad. The purview that we were given from the beginning was quite broad. Zoning plan and implementation, fire, police, and safety services, recreational services, housing code and enforcement services. This is all in the original ordinance. Athens City Transit, streets and parking services, utility services, existing programs, and needs. So, again, acts as a liaison between members of the community and local government, respond to questions from the public, local government, and community, consult with city officials, council citizens, and institutions of Athens in implementing special projects, et cetera, provide information. We have 11 voting members. We did from the start. There are 7 appointed by city council, and then there's a mayoral representative, not confirmed by council, an OU representative, again appointed, and a city council representative. So we have a lot of members. There's a lot we could accomplish. These are the names of the members. I'm doing this report today because I was the chair of the Affordable Housing Commission for the last couple of years, and Shay Myers, who's now the current chair, could not be here. So he allowed me to do this. As you know, Alan Swank is now our liaison, and he's sitting there ready to help us out. Okay, some of the things that we did this year, and again, I'm trying to condense this pretty carefully, contribute to the West Side Spring Cleanup. There was a lot of very cool cleanup on the west side and along the bike path. And then we added the rental inspection processes subcommittee via resolution. We provided input to the welcome home and the vacant property ordinance that did end up passing and coming to fruition. Clean up and add to the Affordable Housing Commission website. And we're working on expanding collaboration to fulfill projects and goals. So you can't get stuff done if you're not talking to the community organizations that do stuff, right? So we're trying to expand our, our contacts and build relationships so that we can accomplish more. Okay, another thing we did was we felt that part of what we do is to provide information in our meetings. So we had Andrew Chicky talking about the Welcome Home and Vacant Property Ordinance. Rob Delich, the BZA chair, spoke about STRs, and Rose Freck talked about integrative services and discussed HUD rules. So this is part informing the committee, the commission, but also hopefully informing the community. And of course, this is all filmed. So Ken Ehlers, the executive director of Habitat for Humanity for this region, talked about their work and new housing plans, and they're doing a lot, which I've been observing and talking to them about. Zach Reiches, he's a consultant, and he explained how land trusts work, which is something that we think is a good direction for us going forward. We'd like to look more into that. We had Jeff Woda and Chris LeGrand, the Woda Cooper Group, talk about what LIHTC really is and about their company and how they function. We also had Danny Tahini, who spoke about tiny homes and how they could possibly be something we could consider in the future. Okay, we have 4 committees. These are standing committees that have been, again, part of the original ordinance. The Executive Committee, that's obvious. Communications Committee, kind of obvious. New Development, new housing. What are some ideas? And of course, Megan Jennings is on that as the leader in planning. And then the Neighborhood Revitalization Committee, which is, like the cleanups and all those kinds of things. And we put the Rental Inspection Processes Subcommittee under that. It seemed to fit. So, Communications Committee and ongoing work to provide new links and correct missing and inaccurate information on our website, make our website more accessible and easier to navigate, and also total transparency on our project work so that anything that we're working on that's relevant, it's viewable by the public under the website. So we talked about accessory dwelling units, and that might be a possibility in the future. I know that Megan is looking at that as a possibility under the comprehensive plan. Short-term rentals, we decided after much discussion to stay the course for now because of some state legal things that may be changing. We, as I said, contributed to the Welcome Home Ohio discussion. And then another idea that's being floated is creating a shared and intergenerational housing program. Again, just early discussion. If we want to add interesting new housing models, this is something that's happening around the country, and there's a great interest, particularly among seniors, to share their homes. So that's another piece of it. I'm a member of the senior housing group that is talking about housing at the ridges, but also in other ways around the community for housing as well as for programming for seniors. And so that is part of what I think we can possibly contribute to. Okay, the Neighborhood Revitalization Committee. As I said, we collaborated with the West Side Community Association to expand Porch Fest and cleanups. So they did a number of different kinds of cleanups and whatnot, which was really quite impressive. The West Side Community Association has really taken fire and is doing a lot of great stuff. Thank you in part to Megan. Appreciate that. All right. Summer beautification days. Again, we collaborated to conduct the cleanup days on the west side and along the bike path. The vacant property ordinance, which I mentioned earlier. I think that will be a help to our community and add some more housing. So getting to the rental inspection process subcommittee, the resolution was passed by City Council at the time in September for a one-year ad hoc group. We have 7 members with 3 appointed. Our purpose is to review rental code inspection and complaint processes to enhance efficient and effective code compliance and rental unit safety to address goals in the city's comprehensive plan. And as I mentioned, we put everything that we have as we clean it up on the city's OneDrive folder so that anybody can view what we're looking at. Okay, our goals are to present informed recommendations, all rental housing in Athens to be structurally and functionally safe, again, based on our recommendations, hopefully, as we go along, because I've been talking to Tom Pyle about this, that we don't want to present anything that the city doesn't feel comfortable that they can input. So this is trying to be a true collaboration with the city in trying to get some things done. Okay, our research team has 3 PhDs, 1 student member, along with volunteer statisticians and IT experts. So we have not only the 7 members, we have several people that are volunteering to help in some phase or another. University people, volunteers, landlords have said they want to contribute. And by the way, I've been very impressed with the extent to which landlords have been very engaged. I have yet to talk to a landlord who's unhappy about this project. And we have of all the emails that the city has for the landlords and property managers is around 500 some. We have a 30% response rate, which is fantastic. So I'm very pleased that this is moving along quickly. We have about 430 so far tenant responses, and we're actively hoping to get a lot more. The more the better, obviously. So collecting and analyzing code office data for inspection. We have a statistician who's doing a fabulous job looking at that. And efficiency strategies, looking at workflow and IT solutions and cost containment, again, with Tom Pyle and, the code office, what do they see, and how can we look at their thoughts about it and how we can incorporate those into any changes. We had meetings with Ohio University to look at some off-campus housing strategies. They've incorporated some changes into their portal for students, and we're looking at other possible ways that we can inform students who are new to being a renter to do a better job or understand their rights and responsibilities. We have interviewed the Public Health Department, the AMHA, the Fire Department, other folks, and we're looking at best practices around the state and anywhere that we hear that they have some good stuff. So we have distributed the surveys. Again, we plan to clean the data. We have a professor, a volunteer, who wants to clean the data in the summertime, and then we're looking to analyze the data in August and September, and then prepare the report from October to November and present the report in December. We might have to change that a little bit depending on some realities, being that Tom Pyle is new, and he may want to extend that, but we're going to see how we can work with what we have. Okay, some other quick things before I'm done. Project Co-Create, as you know, the Sunset Motel is going to be transformed into the Sunset Shelter. They're still working on it. However, because prices have changed, their construction bids have topped their funding caps. So they're trying to look at best new steps. Can they scale back? Can they get additional funding? You know, what kinds of strategy are they using? They're also looking at, although that's kind of delayed too, is kind of programming for the folks that stay there. So it's coming. It's just run into some pitfalls, unexpected pitfalls. I also am, like I said, part of the Ridges discussion, and it's coming along well. So just real quickly, of course, you know they're maintaining the conservation land, the recreation for public use, leverage vacant space and develop land to meet market housing needs, create opportunities for flexible commercial and artist lofts. So they're looking at some restaurants in there, artist lofts at a reasonable price. The transfer to the new community authority is expected this summer. It's finally, it looks like coming together. And then they're looking at construction along Dairy Lane to start as early as 2026. So, and part of that, as I mentioned earlier, is senior housing options, which could be along Dairy Lane. And there's also, so rentals, luxury housing, condos for seniors, a whole range of different, so that it's a mixed-use thing plus some commercial and artist lofts. It's very exciting, and it could be about 700 housing units. So this is a great time to look at how we're inspecting rentals, because we're going to have a whole lot more coming up, not that long from now. So getting an idea of what's up is important. Future plans, exploring ideas based on mission goals and purposes, which I articulated earlier, develop a menu of short and long-term housing strategies, and develop more collaborations, and trying to get some more committees under the Affordable Housing Commission to do some of the legwork, so that there's more people engaged in the process, which I think people really want to have their voices heard with these things. Thank you very much. I'm probably over 10 minutes. I apologize. But anyway, if you have any questions, we can quickly do that.
Thank you, Dr. Spielness, for your service and for that of this commission. We start our committee meetings with comment from administration, and then we move to the public and then to council. So first, if we have any questions or comments from Mayor Patterson.
No comment.
And do we have any questions or comments on this presentation from members of the public this evening? Seeing none at the moment, we'll move to council. Council members who have questions or comments for Dr. Spielness. Member Clodfelder.
I think it's just tremendous that there could be as many as 700 new housing units at the Ridges. That is just great, and I look forward to learning more about that as things progress.
It's finally looking like it might actually happen.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Member Isherwood.
Yeah, I want to thank you again. It's really great to see the work of this commission moving forward. One of the things you had in there, and I don't know if I missed you talking about it, there was discussion of considering the creation of a landlord network. I wonder if you could elaborate on what that would look like and what the thought behind
Well,
that is.
that's been very successful in Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say that we're exploring whether there's interest down there, out, and it's a question on our survey. Would you be interested in landlord survey network? And we went to the university, and they were a little uncomfortable about trying to initiate that. But if it's something that's kind of springs up from folks who care about it, so we're thinking like the landlords can share ideas, share problems. That's what they do up in Columbus. What are some of the things you're facing? What are the things that you're looking at? What are some grants we might do to, I don't know, help with sustainability, for example? What are some issues that we all share that we would like to advocate for? So, you know, it's a possibility. And then going to the university and the city and asking for information and giving comments, I think, is something that at least some of the landlords we've looked at and talked to are interested in.
Okay.
And like I said, working great for a long time up in Columbus.
Thank you, Member Isherwood. Other questions or comments from council members? All right, seeing none, that concludes our report. Oh, Mr. Mayor.
I would like to add something. I was in Germany at the beginning of March, and one of the things I found to be rather fascinating there was they have a through G as opposed to A through F rating system when it comes to rental units, and they're rated upon energy efficiency, which to me was super intriguing, and it's something that I'm going to start with my staff thinking through how we can do this. What was fascinating about it was, in terms of your rental permit cost, if you're an A or you're a B rating, as you're the high end of energy efficiency, you've got double or triple pane windows, you have the proper insulation, you've got a heat pump, you've got whatever in your rental unit, which if you think about it, is driving down the costs either for the landlord who's just tacking that on the rental permit or the rental rate for the individual renting, or if you're like me, where my first 10 years of life here in the city of Athens, I was a renter renting houses, and it was me that had to pay the utilities on those. Electric, water, you said utilities, but electric was one of the bigger ones, and the gas bill, which isn't a city utility. And so if you rate at an A, the current rental permit fee is around $150, $175, somewhere in that range, right? If you are a truly energy efficient unit, this is an option, this is potential, so just hear that, and it would require council working with me on this. Your rental permit rate, your rental permit cost per year could be much less. On the other hand, if you rate as a D or an F on that, which means you've got poorly glazed windows, single pane windows, you have aged insulation in that facility, you've got a HVAC system that is 20, 30, maybe 40 years old, who knows how old. Hot water heaters would be in part of this scorecard for a unit, that your rental permit rate could be substantially higher, as a way in which to help the renter who is renting this unit when it comes to their utilities. It was mentioned about Welcome Home Ohio. One of the things I lobbied really hard with the Welcome Home Ohio homes that we're going to build here in Athens is, again, they're going to price at about $180,000 for a qualified purchaser. But those homes, I've always also said, they will have solar on that home. That solar will be behind the meter, to where, we make sure that the homeowner recognizes that with that solar, because they're going to be buying the house with solar on it, that's driving down their energy cost too. So it's basically kind of helping them with understanding financial fluency. And understanding, okay, my electric bill is lower because I've got behind the meter solar going into this house as well, financial literacy with the household. So there's things that we're really starting to explore, but I have to say that trip to Germany just was an eye-opener to me, to sit there and think, we in the U.S. are doing things vastly different and somewhat antiquated in comparison to what our international partners are doing. And so I just want to throw that out there, to where there's a multitude of things that we can be doing and pulling some levers that would, one, help someone who is, renting to get, to the point in which they have savings enough to invest in a home, or a first-time homeowner. The other thing with the Ridges complex, that is a trip that we took to Traverse City, Michigan. They have a Kirkbride building up there that's the exact same building with some other accoutrements that are a little bit different. Some things we've lost, some things they retained, but they have the same structure, to where you've got the retail, you've got the housing, you've got senior housing, you've got wraparound services for some of the assisted living complexes. We still have a long ways to go on that to see this come to fruition, but Joe Recchi is the person who's already come before council before, and will be hopefully getting things moving forward in the not too distant future as soon as the state signs off on the final transfer of this land to become a reality. But yeah, it will be a game changer. There will also be new homes that are on Dairy Lane, which I think council recognizes that'll be much like the houses that'll be at the end of Hudson Street, to where there will be some modular homes, some townhouse style houses that are down on Dairy Lane, and especially now since we've just got that sidewalk to finally make it that a fully accessible corridor, which will help with the Clem House. It'll help with the 317 board, and knock on wood that Diane Pfaff, she's amazing, she'll make this all work. But there's going to be, I think we're going to see some really interesting things moving forward when it comes to some housing options in the city. I will share this with council too. I just learned this when I was at another meeting just last week. I'm not punchy. I'm operating on an hour and a half sleep because I just came back from Riverside, California from another conference, the Accelerator for America conference. And one of the things that was fascinating there was the whole conversation about ADUs. And a lot of what I was listening to where accessory dwelling units are I think they're really interesting if done well. What I learned was that a lot of cities like Chattanooga, Kansas City was another city, there was a number of cities to where one of the things they identified was when they went through the process of establishing ordinances to allow for them, that there weren't a whole lot of takers. And so I'm just sharing this with council because it's something I think we all need to kind of think through, is when you think about, in particular, a new ADU that might be built on the property, or even if it's a carriage house that has serviced as a garage for a long, long time, it may have electric running to that carriage house, but does it have water and sewer in particular? And so that's what a lot of cities are experiencing right now, is they've gone down this road and all of a sudden they realize no one's biting at this because, wait a minute, I've got to put water to this unit, and I've got to provide sewer to this unit. Now that can be tapped into the stack. There's ways in which you can do that. But again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be looking at this. I think we need to be smart in understanding and hearing what our counterparts across the nation are seeing and hearing, and going, okay, it's better to learn from their mistakes rather than us just sit there and continue the wheel of saying, okay, we're going to go ahead and create AUDs, ADUs in the city of Athens, and not thinking through, is there a tap fee associated with that new unit? Are they going to be able to financially afford the sewer and the water and electric in some cases, if it's a new build in your backyard, if it's permissible and acceptable.
Thank you. We really appreciate the additional kind of national perspective that you've shared and kind of your own thinking as mayor on where we might see future housing opportunities. Dr. Spielnaz, did you want to respond to any of that before we move on?
No, I just want to make a quick note that we can start the process of rezoning. There's some rezoning, like right away, rather than waiting until it's passed to the new community authority. That's what we heard. So we can then make this all go faster.
Thank you again for joining us this evening. That concludes our presentation on the Affordable Housing Commission, and we'll now move on to our second agenda item for the Committee of the Whole, a discussion of Council Rule 28 regarding committee meetings. When we are discussing council rules, this typically is just a council discussion, and we occasionally recognize that our procedures and practice have fallen out of sync with our written council rules. And I'll begin by sharing that our law director, who also serves as our parliamentarian, months ago in helping us transition to a new policy under which we could, our new practice, I should say, now getting codified potentially, have votes and motions during committee meetings. That's typically not something that has happened in the past, but on occasion we have found that there may not be clarity with regard to how much support there's from committee members for an item to move from the committee to the full council for discussion and potential first reading. So I'm going to begin by reading the current language actually, I'll just go with the revised language proposed by the law director. The first section that's unchanged is an introduction that says all meetings shall meet the requirements of the Sunshine Law and be open to the public. Each standing committee shall meet on an as-needed basis on the second and fourth Mondays of the month. No committee meeting shall immediately precede a regular session of council without prior approval of the president of council. Each committee meeting is required to keep minutes of each meeting. Notice of special committee meetings, time and place must be given to the clerk with at least 24 hours of advance notice. In the first section of this rule, we have one change in the first sentence, and it reads, any subject matter brought before the city council shall first be referred to the proper committee chair or official by the president, and that committee chair or official shall forward copies of all materials to be considered at the next committee meeting to each member of the committee by 4 p.m. on the Friday before the committee meeting. What that adds is just that the council may have the committee chair or the council president be informed of those requests. The second sentence under number 1 reads, if the matter requires considerable time and study for completion, such committee chair or official shall advise council members of progress or such study at least every other regular session of council until the subject matter is completed by official action or council action. After the first meeting of a new term of council, the president of council, through the clerk of council, shall review and assign all unresolved assignments to the appropriate committee. There are no changes to the second section, which reads, when any person is about to address a committee, they shall request permission from the committee chair. No debate, disrespect or obscenities shall be tolerated. The committee chair shall rule any such individual out of order. Individual members of the public shall be permitted to speak only one time per committee topic. Each speaker will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes with a limitation of 15 minutes for each public participation per topic, unless permission to extend the time has been granted by the committee chair. This next section is where we have the most significant changes, and that reads, upon completion of discussion of each item, the chair will ask if there are any objections to forwarding the item to council, to the full council. If there is an objection, the chair will ask for a vote. And this is where we have the latest change in this next sentence. If a vote is 2 to 1 or 2 to 2 is received, the item will move forward. If an objection receives a majority vote of 3 to 1, the item will remain in committee until the next meeting. And if it is not placed on the next committee agenda, the chair shall provide an update. If the item is not returned to the committee agenda within 60 days of the date it was first introduced, it will be deemed as dying in committee. And there are no changes to the final section, which reads, as a matter of protocol, no proposed changes. As a matter of protocol and courtesy, complaints from members of council concerning any department or city government should be first made to the mayor or the elected official involved before the same are brought before or entertained by council. Again, with our committee of the whole, we just limit that discussion traditionally to council members, and if the rule pertains specifically to a public engagement topic, that might change. But right now, I would like to open it to council members for comments on the proposed changes from the law director. Who'd like to start?
I mean, I'll start.
Okay, Member Thomas.
I like what we came to this in this discussion with asking if there's an objection and then deciding then that we would need a vote. We tried it with voting, and I know I certainly struggled with remembering that, but it was a little clunky. But this is basically if there's an objection, then we make sure there's enough of a majority objection, and otherwise it'll go forward automatically as it has in the past. My only concern would be if it does not move on to the next committee agenda, that it will die at 60 days and that we don't have a mechanism that requires it to be brought forward again in some way, because maybe it just needed a little more work or some more questions. But it would be pretty easy for that to be pushed back and then die in committee. Or maybe I'm reading that too deeply.
No,
Thank you for getting the discussion started, Member Thomas. If anyone has a response or other comments, we'll entertain those now. Member Wood.
Can I ask a point of clarity on your note?
Sure,
earlier,
yeah.
Micah? From reading between the lines, can you make explicit what the parliamentarian is saying here, in as far as one, the recommendation that we rely on votes is needed? Yeah, I'm just trying to read between the lines of what is being said here.
Yeah, and if I don't capture that in this response, feel free to rephrase. But essentially, we have noticed that at times it's unclear whether a committee's discussion has resulted in enough support for an agenda item or committee item to move to council for full discussion. And the default with this proposal is for it to move to council unless someone objects. And it's not just one person. It has to be a majority of the committee that would offer an objection before it would officially not go to full council. And we've been trying to establish some clarity around when things are ready to move from committee to full council with voting, this term in particular, but it was not a prior practice, so we want to make sure that our rules are reflecting what's been happening recently.
And
Yeah.
sorry, just
Yeah.
a secondary. Is the recommendation that we do pursue this or that we leave it alone?
Our current rules don't call for any motions or votes during committee meetings, so these changes would make our rules say that when we want to decide if something is moving from committee to council, we will give the opportunity for someone to object. And if there are a majority of objections from committee members, then it wouldn't come to full council.
No, I get that. I'm saying, is the law director recommending that we do this or not?
Yes, what council
Thank you.
members received and reviewed and read are
Yep,
the
yes
law
or no,
director's
yep.
recommendation. Yeah. Member Swank.
Ooh, boy, a couple things. It's really tough to have this discussion this evening without the law director here, because we're not able to ask questions as to the background, the reasoning, the process that she went. This is not a legal opinion because this is not a legal matter. Legal matters are things that come before council where we vote on things that affect the public, either their quality of life here in the town or their purse. But this is a rule thing. I guess the first thing I would like to say is we have loosely adopted some committees more than others. And as Member Thomas says, it takes a little bit of getting used to, and I realize that. It's something new for this council, as is our procedure for how we do things. For those of us on council last year, we're sitting here one day and all of a sudden this man who nobody knows who is speaking to us, telling us what the new rules are. So it takes a while to get used to these things. But now when we finish a committee meeting, and we had a committee meeting 2 weeks ago, the committee chair, after the discussion appears to be wrapped up and everyone's given their opportunity to speak, asked, can I have a motion to move this on to, and we get a second, and there's a vote. And I looked at the last council meeting, and that whole process took, on average, 10 seconds. So it's not a matter of saving time, if that's a consideration here. What it does is formalize a process. And I think, at least in forms of planning and development, it has worked very well. And that the committee makes an official stance, takes an official vote before we pass it on. And I guess my question to my fellow council members, do they feel that the current system isn't working?
Member Cloudfeller.
I guess I wouldn't go so far as to say it's not working, but I do find it kind of cumbersome and busy. It just seems busy in the committee meetings. I like this idea that if there's not an objection, that it just goes forward. But if there is an objection, then a vote is taken. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of voting entirely in committee meetings. But I personally don't see the need to, like if a committee has 6 items before it, to vote 6 times. Just seems a bit, I don't know, in Spanish there's a word pesado, right? A bit heavy, like a bit cumbersome. Whereas maybe, who knows, but in a scenario I could see there maybe only being a need to vote on one of them if there's an objection on one. Or 2, or whatever, what have you.
Thank you, Member Cloudfelder. Member Stazer, we haven't heard from you yet?
To me, it just seems like an automatic walk in baseball now, right? You don't have to throw 4 pitches anymore. You just do like that and walk somebody, right? Like, I don't see a big issue with going this route, especially if the law director recommends it.
I do love football, so thank you for your metaphor.
That was baseball.
Just kidding. Okay, all right, let's go to Member Isherwood.
I mean, I guess, and I hear what Member Swank's saying is there need to change. I'm comfortable, if this is what the law director prefers and it feels that it would be more efficient, and it requires committee members, well, if they do have an objection, to voice that. But I'm not sure I'd love to hear the 3-1 and the 2-2. So if you have a situation where.
Oh, now that is an error. It should be 2-1 or 2-2, indicating that there needs to, oh, sorry. Yes.
But so if a vote of 2, but if the committee is split 2-2, how could you say that there's consensus of support on the committee to move that forward?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't sound like that's saying consensus. It would say that would be that 2 out of 4, then there's half the committee members who were supporting it to move forward, and this would read that it would move forward based on that.
And that's 2-2? But it says if a vote then of 2-2 is received, the item will move forward.
Yes, based on this.
But that's not a majority.
Yeah, so you're right. This is 50% or more would be what moves it forward based on these recommendations. You're reading that correctly.
Yeah.
Member Thomas, and then back to Member Swink.
So the point would be that to keep something from going forward to full council, you would need a majority to say we don't want it to go forward.
Okay.
But keeping it as we're split and we need more voices, or we have a 3-1 that it should go forward. Basically, if it's not a 3-1 against, it's going to be a 3-1 for. It basically says if it needs more discussion, it will go forward, and we're comfortable with it. And if we're split, we need more input. But if everybody, like 4-0 or 3-0 or 3-1, didn't think it was ready to move forward, then it would stay.
Okay.
Majority would just,
So it's a different, the way we're currently doing it, you're required to have a majority to move it forward,
Correct.
which would
And there's-
suggest that
yeah.
there is support
yeah.
in the committee.
And there's no real,
It's a nuance, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
but there's no dealing with the 2-2 aspect of it, which means if it
What do
wasn't a majority, then it just stayed in committee indefinitely with no real rules
Okay.
around it.
Or 1-2.
Let's go to Member Swank and then Member Wood. Thank you, Member Thomas.
So another sports analogy. Last Monday night, Member Clodfelder proudly referenced the fact that the NCAA men's basketball championship was being played in Indianapolis, her home state.
Yep.
Had that game ended 70-70, tied, the game would not be over. They would go into overtime. In other words, they would have further discussion. Until the end of that first 5-minute period, one team or the other had at least one more vote, at least one more point than the other. And if it was tied at the end of that overtime, they would have 5 more minutes of further discussion. I mentioned to Member Isherwood last week that the idea of any objections, none, move it forward, was a very workable thing. And I still believe that. I don't necessarily believe that we have to have a vote on everything. I do like the formality of it. I have a great deal of difficulty with 2-2 moving something forward because that is not a majority. I can't think of an elected body in these United States at any level where lack of a majority is an affirmative to move something forward. To confirm that, I got on the horn today. I talked to 3 different school board members in 3 different districts in the state of Ohio. I talked to a magistrate, and I talked to an attorney. And all 5 of them, both registered Republicans and registered Democrats, not a partisan response, said, no, you got to have a majority to move something forward. In each of our elected, meaning them, each of their elected bodies, you have to have a majority to move something forward. It's called 50% plus 1. 50% plus 1. For example, if we had a vote on a statewide basis for an issue such as the property tax repeal, and it came out dead even after recount after recount after recount, it would not go into effect. if there were only 6 of us here in this body and we were voting on an ordinance and the final result was 3-3, it wouldn't move on. However, our rules stipulate that in case of a tie, the president of council breaks that tie. And if the president of council would vote in the affirmative, it would move on. So if we're doing that in our meetings here already in the regular sessions, it seems to me that for something to move out of committee, it too should require a majority vote of that committee.
Thank you, Member Swank. I'll go to Member Thomas unless I have someone to my left who I missed who's wanting to get into the discussion. Okay, back to you, Member Thomas.
I disagree. First, because the purpose, at least in my opinion, of committees is to flesh out details, to have some discussion, not to withhold things from full council, which is how it's been used in the past. The purpose of a 2-2 just shows that we don't have enough input between 4 people on the discussion, and that we should involve the rest of the council who are all elected officials. We're not passing anything, adopting anything, or giving permission for anything. We're simply doing the initial steps of an ordinance and gathering information and talking about it. We're not yaying or naying really anything. I would be fine with having a vote, but I do think that having a split vote, it doesn't need a tiebreaker because it's not passing anything. It just needs to move forward for more discussion. I guess in the basketball reference, overtime, full council would be our overtime then. If it's 77 at the end of regulation, then you go to overtime and full council is our overtime. We could go with a lot of sports here. But I think it needs more discussion and it keeps, because if it just stays in committee, then we would have to have a whole nother number, I guess a number 3 and then a number 4, make 4 number 5. Because then I would want restrictions on how long it stays in committee and how long it's sitting there. We've had instances where it's sat for 6 or 7 months because of a single person, and I don't really want to see that anymore. It's not working at state and federal level, and I really refuse to have it happening at local level.
With that, and council members will still have opportunities to comment, but thinking of our specific scenario tonight where we're not talking about committees of 4, we're talking about the committee of the whole. And at the end of this discussion, we'll need some sense of what we want to have happened here. If a majority of council members were to indicate that they felt that the law director's proposed revisions to this rule are worth formally voting on by all of council, then we would have a motion and a second, and if there was a majority vote, it would move to our next regular session for a full vote by council. And if we had 4 individuals of 4 members of the 7 council object, then it would move forward. But I'm curious if council members have specific questions about how this would play out in practice. Member Swank.
I keep hearing the law director's proposal. Without the law director here, I don't know if this is the law director's proposal or if the law director saying, if you're going to do this, this is some suggested language. And I guess I would like to take up this discussion when the law director is here. And I know she's not required to be at committee meetings, so no disparaging the law director here. But I would like to take this up when the law director is here, when we can ask those questions. I would also, that's what I would like to do. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not real comfortable with the vote tonight without a clear, definitive set of answers from the law director as to how we got to this document that we're looking at today.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from Member Swank is that rather than voting on the proposed language itself, additional information about context and rationale would be appreciated. Member Wood.
I have some language issues in it. I mean, I don't really have deep heartburn one way or the other. I think the language of if there's an objection, if a vote is 3-1, the item moves forward. And then it says, if an objection receives a vote of 3-1, the item will remain in committee. Yeah. And so, like, that language seemed poorly worked. it doesn't have a solution for if it's a 1-2 vote. It doesn't say what happens, if there are fewer than 4 members, et cetera. I mean, it just, the language itself doesn't seem very good.
So I'm hearing from Member Wood that there may be some amendments that he'd be interested in seeing to this.
Weren't those numbers changed?
Yes, we did correct the specific point that you made in sentence 2.
2-1 instead of 3-1.
I don't understand why there would be a 2-1 vote, though.
If
Somebody's absent,
But also,
or someone has to recuse themselves.
Okay.
There's just a typo in the first 3-1.
sure, I guess it just still doesn't make sense. If a majority is received, it'll move forward. And it says, if the objection receives a majority, it remains. It just seems, it's unclear. If there's an objection, the voters receive 3-1, it moves forward. If the objection receives 3-1, it stays.
Yeah, it's,
The language says the same thing, same resolution for both sentences.
no matter, it'll always move forward.
I only made it through pre-law, but
Further than I went.
All right, and Member Thomas?
I think we could work on the wordiness of it, I guess. I would just clarify that the reason this came up is because for my first 2 years of council, I thought about this, and I thought about it before I came on to council. And after the first 18 months or so, I asked the law director, can we do this? How would you recommend doing this? Came up with some language and sent it to her as a proposal or an idea, and asked her, do you think this is reasonable? And she worked with the language that I had sent with her view as to how it should be handled, and agreed, that obviously agreed that this would be what she would suggest if we went with this. And I think just for what Member Wood's saying, if there's an objection, then we vote, but if there's not an objection, we wouldn't vote at all. So if they said if she said, is there any objection? One person says, yes, I have an objection, then we do a formal vote. If there's no objection raised, then it just automatically moves forward, which prior to this January, everything was supposed to just go forward and had for decades, just automatically went from committee to full council with no lag in between. And so when that wasn't happening as often, that's when it kind of started coming up. And that's really the background.
Thank you, Member Thomas. We'll move to Member Swank, and then we'll move toward closing this discussion for the evening.
Well, I appreciate Member Thomas's explanation there, because she very clearly stated this was not something that the law director came up with. This was a response from requests from her, and this was the language that came out of that. So I hope the city council members realize this is not something that originated with the law director, and therefore changes a little bit of the nuance to it, which further makes me think that we probably need to get the law director in here to get some clarity on this. We can't obviously subpoena her this evening, but in a regular meeting when she's here and we're all here, I think this would be a very good topic for conversation.
All right, may I request some specific recommendations for moving forward? For instance, council members may indicate their preference for asking the law director to attend a future committee meeting where this could be discussed, or council members could recommend we take a vote on the language as proposed this evening, which would result in an opportunity for people to raise objections, and if 4 or more raised objections, then it would not move forward. If fewer than 4 raised objections, then it would move to our next regular session. Member Clodfelder.
I like the idea of, if the law director is available, of inviting her to come to a committee meeting, because I think it would be good to have more discussion on this before we get to a vote.
To that end, I would move that we do exactly what Member Clodfelter said.
I am just in the process of checking in with other council members, but we have had a motion. Member Thomas, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that I would say that I would like to put this forward next week for the very purpose of what we're hearing right now.
All right. And already having heard a motion from Member Swank, and then that same sentiment approved by Member Clodfelder and Thomas, but can we have a formal second?
Can I have a point of clarification?
Sure.
Would we need to wait to a committee meeting to talk? Could we not put this on the agenda for next week to talk with the law director then, as someone suggested waiting for a committee meeting?
I believe that during regular session, we would need to have pending legislation to have it on the agenda, but I'll ask the clerk if you think that regular session or committee would be more appropriate.
With committee, because it may take some time, the discussion.
So we'll consider alternatives if we find that the law director is not available for committee potentially, but the plan would be to move to committee. And can we have a second to the suggestion that we invite the law director to a committee meeting as a means of proceeding?
Second.
All right, thank you, Member Stazer. All in favor, no, discussion, sorry.
I made that motion based on number 3. And that's all we've talked about so far is number 3. We haven't talked about number 1 because that is as clear as mud to me, the process. So would it be appropriate to go ahead and have the vote on number 3 and then discuss number 1?
I think I'll suggest that we go ahead and save all of the Rule 28 discussion for the law director's presence and input, but we'll make sure that.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but that may just extend the conversation that could be taken care of right now.
You're suggesting a vote on just Section 3?
Because we skipped right over number 1. And I don't know what that means.
I, at this point, would recommend, because there are still some questions and we've been on this item for a little while, that we take up that question and the others raised with the law director.
Well, we're here, okay? We're here. Let's deal with this.
We've got a motion and a second to go to the next committee meeting. Your suggestion is what?
On number 3.
This was for all discussion of Rule 28 going to the next committee meeting.
Well, we never had a chance to discuss number 1 is what I'm saying. We skipped right over it.
Council members had the comment to discuss any of Rule 28 this evening, but we will continue that discussion at a future meeting. Councilmember Swank has noted that he has a specific desire for clarity around Section 1 that we did not discuss at length today. So we have a motion and a second to continue this conversation at a future committee meeting with the law director. All in favor of doing so, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. All right. We have had 6 of 7 council members indicate that they would like to resume this under committee of the whole with an invitation to the law director to join us. So with that, we'll conclude this item and I'll pronounce committee of the whole concluded for the evening at 7:57. And we'll move on to our next item, and that will be
Transportation.
Transportation Committee. Thank you, Member Swank. And our Transportation Committee is chaired by Member Beth Claudfelder, joined by Member Wood, Stazer, and Swank. All other members of council may move to the audience at this time. All right. I'll turn things over to Chair of Transportation, Member Claudfelder.
Okay, so this is an item that comes up annually, specifically in April. This is when it comes up. And this is the need for the city to buy road salt for next winter. Winter starting in November, December, whatever, of 2026 and going into 2027. There is a cooperative purchasing program that the state of Ohio runs that allows cities to buy road salt through the state. Typically at a significantly less expensive price than they could get on the private market. So, and also the state of Ohio, for whatever reason, has provides a very short window of time for this whole process to happen. From the time they send out a request for proposals until the application deadline. So if this goes forward to full council, we will have to suspend the rules, probably at first reading, to give the city administration time to prepare an application for this. Mayor Patterson, is there anything you would like to add?
Absolutely. I mean, we do this every single year. This is the Costco of buying road salt through the state. It gives us stronger purchasing power. This is no different than a community choice aggregation, quite honestly. It helps drive down the cost. Aside from the reasoning as to why ODOT has a short runway in which to go through this process, and I'm not going to question that, because this is what gives us the best pricing that we have seen when it comes to our purchasing of road salt moving forward. It's already been budgeted for the expenditure of the city resources to buy road salt, And to go through this route, rather than to us go out there on our own and put it out to bid, quite honestly, no pun intended, we're going to be paying our weight in salt to sit there and do it that way versus going with the cooperative purchasing program. So, we do this every year. We've as long as I've been mayor, as long as the previous mayors have been mayor, this has been something that we've always gone through.
Do we have any, do you want to ask for comment from others?
Would anyone in the public like to comment on this discussion? All right, members of the committee?
Just a
Members,
quick,
Mike?
thank you. Just a quick question for the mayor. If you remember back when it was so cold for so long this winter, we were looking at possibly running out of salt, as were other places around the country, around the state, or around the country for that matter. How did we end, and the reason I ask this question, if we ended up with a lot, we're not going to have to buy as much, but if we ended up with a little, we're going to have to buy a lot more, and considering the city's financial position, could you speak to that, please? How did we end up the year, and what are you anticipating?
We ended up with a slight surplus this year because we did get the bins refilled. That was great. And it wasn't just the city of Athens, it was largely statewide to include ODOT that found themselves not having enough salt during that really difficult time that you're mentioning. So I think we go into it with a little bit of a surplus in our bins, and we also we will calculate that in terms of what we end up ultimately purchasing for the next year. Let's be real with each other. Climate action is something that I take very seriously because climate change is here. It's hard to predict year by year what we're going to see, whether we're going to have another polar vortex or we're going to have a heat dome come during the summer that, of course, doesn't require salt. It just requires lots of water and a lot of electricity. So we will continue to kind of forecast ahead as to what that will look like going into next year and purchase appropriately. But I also have to say, at the end of the day, it requires statewide a village to know when someone is having to lay down a lot more road salt for sundry different reasons versus another community or ODOT, that we also have this system in place to where we've gone to ODOT in the past and said, District 10, our district, and said, do you have salt that we can get from you because we're running low because of maybe an ice storm that we had or something that may not have affected other places in the state or not as severely. So we'll continue to keep that partnership running too. But Councilmember Swain, to your question, it's hard to predict in terms of seasonally what we're going to be experiencing. I think we dodged a bullet by not having a late snowfall this spring. Is it unheard of? No, we've had snowfalls in May. We didn't have anything like that this year, and not much in April either. But this is a great program at the end of the day that allows us to buy at a much more reasonable rate than it would be if we went on our own.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments from the committee? Okay, that concludes the Transportation Committee for this evening.
Let me just double check. Do we need to go ahead and check for objections for moving this forward?
I moved it, we move it forward.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any objections to moving forward? Okay, great. Thank you. We will conclude transportation at 8:03. And next on our docket is Finance and Personnel Committee. That's chaired by member Jessica Thomas, joined by Beth Clodfelder, John Stazer, and Michael Wood. All other members may move to the audience temporarily. Member Thomas, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. We just have a few appropriations tonight, and then as I emailed one then and now that came in just after the agenda went out. The first on the appropriations list is APD, a voice logger, or an unplanned replacement of the voice logger that they use for recording radio calls, phone calls, and et cetera. It's an unplanned appropriation of $65,000, and Chief Magruder mentioned in his communications on this that this was in its 9th year, and they typically are 5 to 6 year items. So it's just time for it to be replaced. Does anyone have any questions on the voice logger? Yeah,
Is the old one not working?
it's starting to fail, and so they're trying to get ahead of it. He does not anticipate that we need to suspend or do anything to move this along faster. It can go through the normal readings, but as it's 9 years in, he thinks it's time to be ready. And it takes thousands of calls for the police department, so we don't really want to go without it, is what his messages have said. Any additional questions? Anything from I guess I did that backwards, but from the mayor's office?
No.
No. Anything from the public? And any additional questions from the committee? All right. This will all be in one appropriations ordinance, but we can go through them item by item. The next three are all like we did the last time. These are basically catch-ups from last year where the year closed before the project was done, and so funds that had been not encumbered but were appropriated need to be reappropriated because they die at the end of the year. They're all spelled out there for street fund, water fund, and sewer funds, so we are just reappropriating those so that they can wrap up where they are in the project. This is still ongoing. Any additional comments from the mayor's administration?
No, other than I would encourage council to go down to the end of Kenny Drive and look at the developments that are taking place down there with the fire safety training center that's going on. As I would to say, go down to the West State Street ball fields and look at the new restrooms that are down there. But, sorry, I digress. We're talking fire service safety center.
Anything from the public? And any questions from the rest of the committee? All right, seeing none. The one last thing that I had put in the email, and that I'll get to Debbie for the meeting next week, is a then and now, and it is a PEP payment for $3,074.22. It's deductible recovery for 2 Joneswood, which was just a insurance claim from last summer that we need to reimburse the insurance company for.
Because of water damage?
No, this is for a mower that hit a pole that damaged some Frontier lines and that went through Frontier's claim on the damage, and then it had to go through our insurance and their insurance, and so the $3,000 is what we owe the insurance company who paid for the claim in the first place. Any comments from the administration?
No.
And anything from the public? And Member Cloudfeld.
Why do we owe an insurance company money for paying for a claim? Isn't that what they're for?
So this did not meet the deductible for the claim. They weren't going to cover it at all, but it's cleaner for us to pay the insurance company and them to pay Frontier than for us to go through Frontier's claims company. Like they have an entity that does their claims, and then coming through there for the city to pay our insurance who already paid the bill.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a backup question about the police scanner, actually, if it
Okay.
can retcon that.
Yeah, we can go back on that.
I'm just adding up the estimates here, and I'm getting 33,000, it's almost half of the 65? Is there paper receipts we're not seeing in the?
It hasn't been built. It hasn't been purchased yet. This is just to appropriate the money for them to purchase one.
Sure, I'm just seeing the quotes here on the email
Yes.
that are half the number that they're asking for.
I think those are just estimates. Hang on, I gotta pull up the full email here. I would guess those are just estimates, and I can ask as what they anticipate it costing, and then also what it will eventually end up costing.
Just asking, I mean, we had a lot of discussion about encumbering numbers from the general fund for the Orca discussion, everything else. This is more than that number. And so I'd like to make sure we're at least on the right number.
So this will be what I can get more information and I can talk to Chief Magruder and Director Stone. What this will do is it will authorize them to expend up to, and then once they purchase the equipment, we'll have an actual cost. But this is what they're estimating, and so unless he did not send one of the full invoices, because these are just informational, not factual, until they're actually purchased. But I can ask him for more information for council next week.
Thanks.
Any other questions? If I get more details between that and then, I'll send it out to the committee also. All right, so then, since we went backwards, any objections to bringing forward the appropriations or the then and now? All right, and that ends finance and personnel.
All right, finance and personnel is concluded. And we will now move on to planning and development, chaired by member Alan Swink, joined by members Megan Almeida, Paul Isherwood, and Jessica Thomas. Chair Swink, you have the floor.
Okay, we just have one item tonight, and this is kind of a reprise of something we talked about back, I guess it was in January. Back in January, maybe it's February, Village Bakery, Christine Hughes transferred the liquor license, applied for a transfer of the liquor license from Village Bakery on East State Street to the front 2/3 of the Athens Bicycle Shop on Stimson Avenue. And council did not feel that we needed to have a hearing on that. Consequently, it proceeded. Recently, Christine Hughes decided to change the business name, or the name in which the liquor license is listed, from Christine Hughes to Daisy LLC, still in the same location, 4 West Stimson Avenue. Well, in so doing that, we have to consider this again, whether or not we need to have a hearing or not. One thing I will add to this that isn't reflected in this application and has no bearing on, I don't think they have any bearing on our decision this evening, is they also found out that they could not divide that shop into 2 entities, with the front 2/3 being the wine shop and the back 1/3 being the bicycle shop. State liquor laws prevent that from happening, so they will be taking over the entire shop, will be the wine shop at 4 West Stimson Avenue. And that will be effective about June 1 when the lease is up for the bicycle part of that building. So that's what's before us today. Mr. Mayor, anything you'd like to add to that, sir?
No, other than Councilmember Swank is really kind of funny. I was sitting here when I saw that address and I was Googling it, and all that kept showing up was Bloom. And I'm going, oh no, I hope we don't have a shop that's selling marijuana also wanting a liquor permit. That is not the case. That is not the case. That is across the street. So I don't have anything to add other than it is within the DORA. In the past, we have had Bellavino that was down there as a wine store. So
Okay, thank you. Even before that, we had
if it passes through council.
yeah, exactly. Members of the public. Okay, so I don't know if we're calling for a vote, if we're looking for consensus, so I guess I'll ask it this way. Anybody doesn't like wine on the committee? Guess we're moving forward. That concludes the council meeting, and that concludes planning and development.
Thank you to all of our chairs and to our mayor for being here this evening. Thanks to the public, and we'll conclude council at 8:14 p.m.